right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Your History podcast. Today we have Destiny Sky with us, ready to share her story and how she ended up overcoming all of what she has to be able to be in a position where she lets God lead her life. So I'm so excited to have you on and just kind of talk about what brought you here, what made you to who you are today, and to be able to honor God the way that you have been. Whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you even having me on here and being able to share my story. I haven't actually shared it yet. So I grew up Catholic. I do have a lot of gratitude for that because it taught me a lot about my character, and so she instilled the things like volunteering and helping people out and serving others. So that is a main core of what I can truly be thankful for, and also the prayer that I knew was around me. But I never truly had my relationship with God. I never understood it. It was kind of hard to understand because it was very mature. In high school, everyone was starting to go to Collide at Next Level, and it was this hyped up thing, And so I started going, and it was fun, and I was able to actually connect with God. And then I started I joined the small group with Joanne and all the other sisters, and I was able to go to Collide Conference thanks to Joanne. She paid for me to go. So it was really kind of her, and I was able to connect a lot with Erica, and that's where our friendship really established at Collide Conference. And then I connected with God, and I started feeling getting a taste of what it was like. And I remember just crying at one of the worship times, and just really feeling wow, this is the start of something new.
Yeah.
And after that, I was so on fire, and I was going to my parents, and I'm telling my dad oh, this is God, this is Jesus, I love it. And then I just never really followed through with it. And my oldest brother, who was battling a lot of different things, since 12 years old, he was battling arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and then he was in and out the hospital really his whole life, and taking steroids, taking injection every day, and then eventually he turned to drugs. And on April 20th, 2019, he committed suicide, and he passed away. So that's probably one of the hardest things that I've gone through. But it did change me. It changed me in more so of a way of understanding. It changed my understanding of people and their feelings the most. And it did lead me into a faith, but it wasn't the right faith. It led me more into a spiritual kind of world.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I was, just lost.
Yeah.
Thinking that, I had some kind of guidance, which I will say in the time it gave me something to look forward to because of the pain. Yeah. But it wasn't the right thing.
Right.
And so I decided I was in acting and modeling school at the time, in Fort Myers. And I had gotten a scholarship to an acting school, an acting conservatory in New York. So that was before he passed away, and then I decided to still go. And so I left a few months after in August, moved to New York by myself, and went on my journey of school and acting, and it was so great, so awesome. But I did just get more and more involved into, the crystals and the signs and the essentially witchcraft things. And then I just became completely involved in all of the worldly things. It kind of just, there was no real faith, that's why it's, when I looked, whatever faith I thought I had wasn't instilled in the right things, into positive things. So that's why it always confuses me too, because how can I say that I have faith in something that's good and yet not be doing good? Yeah, I even battle it still because like people around me, like you said, it's so popular, and it's the little things like, oh, I'm a Taurus, or I'm this, or I'm that. And it's like we adopt these things and we make them our identity, but realistically, like my identity is just a child of God, and so to get out of that and like unadopt that for myself it's still a process. Like I try my hardest, but because I'm so used to things like that, like probably the horoscope is one of the most the hardest things to let go of because it's been around for so long in my life and around me, and everyone's like, oh, Capricorn season, Taurus season, Virgo season, like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Oh, I don't like Virgos, or I don't like, and it's all like a mind puzzle.
Yeah.
And
it's idolizing. It's like you're idolizing these other things that you think are bringing you comfort, and I feel like some people don't even realize it's witchcraft sometimes.
I wouldn't have thought it was witchcraft at all.
Wow, yeah.
I wouldn't have even, but until I let God into my life and I started reading the Word is when you truly open those doors of truth. So I started working as a model and an actor in the city, and I had a really good friend of mine who I started college with, and she was a big part of my story in New York. She was someone that I was able to lean on and someone I was able to connect with, but we weren't necessarily in the best place with our faith. But then I eventually got into the love and glorification of money. And so I was introduced to a work position at a club with her. And we, for a solid year, we were like Bonnie and Clyde and working at a club, just making money, becoming these girls that on social media these days are using men for money, and just that whole promiscuous world. There's a lot of things that I did, things that I said, things that I thought were okay, or I just did, and deep down I knew that I had no business doing that. Like I knew, but I was still just in the wrong environment. And there's things that I felt like I would hold on to forever. Like I would just be dragging them for the rest of my life because I just felt so attached to these things that hurt me. And thankfully that's not the case anymore. But there was one girl who's part of my story as well, my salvation story, and I love her so much, my sister, and she worked at the second club that I worked at, but she was a masseuse there, so she was like very modest, and she went there and she actually spread the word of God. And she eventually started just talking to me about God, and we just started connecting, and she would tell me like God's favor over me and how powerful my name is, and how I just came out the womb already with gifts and destined for greatness. And she's like, your name is Destiny Sky, like please don't ever take that lightly. Like,
I mean, wow, to just be in an environment like that, and for her to just have that courage like that, just being able to just boldly speak of that, and that's amazing. Speak life into others. Wow.
She was the boldest woman that I probably have ever met. She was so confident in knowing that she is called here to do God's work, and she has the ability to be a disciple of Jesus and to save others, help save others. And probably in the beginning of 2023, I was into weed and into mushrooms, and probably those two like the most. Which I started smoking weed at 13 years old, and just a month ago I quit.
Wow.
So I am a month sober.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
on
you.
that. Yeah,
That's
it's something
huge.
to celebrate.
Yes.
Absolutely. Especially you're talking about since you were 13, like here we are a little over 10 years later. That's amazing.
You know, although I was on this drug, I was able to see a little bit of clarity onto what I was doing in my life.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing was, what am I living for?
Right.
Like, is this really what is important to you and what makes you happy? Like, I had no family. I had barely any friends. Like, all my true friends are from my hometown.
Yeah.
I had an addiction to food, an addiction to weed. You know, I was having sex. I was just doing all these things. And then I decided I'm going to move back home to Florida.
Wow. And that's a big step because you're essentially not only letting go of what, was a little bit of you were in New York because you were trying to build a dream. Like, I'm sure there was some sort of career in sight. There was some sort of like building a foundation of this is what I have in mind for my life. This is where I want to be when you're in acting, you're in modeling, like things like that. So to have established those networks there and to decide this just isn't fulfilling me. I'm going back home where you don't have that kind of network, right? So you're building, you're going to have to start from scratch. Like, I'm sure that was not an easy decision.
No, it was probably the hardest because I felt like I was literally breaking up with my life. Like,
Yeah.
just leaving everything that I was trying to do behind. But I just kept praying and I kept praying, and day by day it just became clearer to me that I have to trust in this process. And 3 weeks before Halloween, I started going to church. So there was someone.
Was this this year? Last year?
This is 2023.
Okay.
So it's already been over a year that I've been back.
Yeah.
So 2023, in October, I kind of invited myself to a friend of mine's church. And I started going back to church in Plantation. But I just still wasn't there. I was still into the crystals, and I was still into the things. It's been a year now where just day after day after day, God's just been working in me nonstop. Like, I've just changed that 1% every single day.
Yeah.
And I just took my mom's Bible. I didn't have my own. I actually remember throwing away, how sad, I threw away a Bible that I got from church in high school. Rip to that Bible because I miss it. I should have kept it. But how sad. God forgive me, please.
I love the random thought of like, I grabbed my mom's Bible because I threw mine away.
And her Bible was a Catholic Bible. Well, it is a Catholic Bible.
Yeah.
So it had like all these extra books in it. But I just ignored it, and I was just like, it's a Bible, like, let me just start here. And then my friend at the time got me this study Bible that was going viral on TikTok. That also moved me forward with it and everything.
Right.
And then I said, I had been carrying this thing, like I told you, I was like dragging these things along.
Yeah.
I had been carrying this just thing, and I was just like, I need to be free. Like, I can't go on anymore with it. And so I started watching church in my room for a few weeks, and I said yes to Jesus in March of 2024.
Wow.
In my room, I'm just crying and I'm just praying. It's so crazy how, like, salvation, just the simple act of saying yes or just getting baptized, like, and truly inviting the Holy Spirit into your life and to be led by the Lord is like so life-changing and so empowering, because like you don't realize what can happen until you just do it, until it's genuine. And just like as soon as I did that, just day after day, I felt like I was being worked through. And little by little, I was just making peace with all these things and just leaning on God and learning to lean on God and how to lean on God and how to pray and how to invite Him into my life. Just like restarting everything again, you know?
Yeah.
Like everything that I had learned in the past about God and church and religion just like was swiped clean, and I just had to restart.
Exactly.
All the values, all the teachings, all the practices. I just learned it again. It was all so simple. It was all so much simpler. Like it made me feel so much better, because when I just focused on God instead of all these other things, it was like, wow, like this was so simple. I could have done this so long ago. He tested me. He tested me so many times, and I think the biggest test and growth, like chapter of growth, was when I learned more about myself than I ever have through a partner and relationship. So I was in a relationship, someone that to this day, I just care about so much, love so much. But God showed me what He had for me through this other person.
Wow.
Like I was able to learn all of my flaws, all of my essentially like the chains that were on me. I was able to recognize them and realize what I truly wanted. You know, like, and it gave me the strength which I never was able to have before to release these things, and it just gave me so much clarity. It just brought me closer and closer in my faith, into the church, and I was able to find peace in the Lord more, even if I didn't have peace outside in the real world, you know.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that.
So I knew I was okay,
Yeah.
even though I felt like I wasn't okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Even now, you know, like it's still a battle to this day. Like I'm still releasing so many things. It's so hard because, you know, like when you see the beauty of the Lord and you see what He's doing in your life, you want the best for yourself as well. You want to see yourself the way that God sees you. And so that's probably like one of the hardest things I'm experiencing right now, is just like really trying to listen to what God is telling me and what He has for me, but also to love everybody no matter what, and to be forgiving and to be understanding, and I just like, it's just so crazy because the mindset I have now and the values that I want to instill in myself now are so different than they were just a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's all thanks to my relationship with Jesus. And I was finally baptized on November 17th. And wow, like the best day, literally the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I came out of the water, I just felt like everything that I was dragging with me was just gone.
Yeah.
Like I was just like free. I was a new woman. I was like stepping into like really what He has for me. And nobody can ever experience that until they do. Like nobody will ever truly feel how we feel until you let God into your life, because it's just so amazing and like so powerful. And so ever since that day, I've had just this crazy strength to just put Him first no matter what. And I was able to let go of the weed and let go of the anger and the hatred. And so it's just been an amazing 2 months, almost 2 months, where I've just prayed harder than I ever have been.
Yeah.
Ever. Like my prayer has gotten me through that hardship, because it's like everything happened at once. So as I'm getting baptized is when I have this just overflow of pain, emotions, confusion, like, and I just thank him because that's when I needed him the most, and that's when I got baptized. And it couldn't have happened any other way, at any other time. And it just gives me again this just clarity, because I see and I look at situations and I'm like, well, this happened at this time because that's when it was supposed to happen, and that's when I had the strength. Like with my faith, if my faith wasn't there, then I would have never gotten through it. I would still be in that cycle.
Yeah.
And so I was saved. I was saved, and here I am today. And now I speak His word everywhere I go. Every client I have, I talk to them about God. Everyone at work, my friends at work, I talk to them about God. I'll invite you to church, even if you say no. I'll invite you again next week and again the next week, and until you say yes. And I pray for everyone, and I have just been truly like open and able to hear now these things, His plans for me.
I'm in complete awe just listening to you, because I can't, one, being young and in this worldly world, like obviously things have just escalated so much in this world when it comes to so much, hate and negativity and, the sex and the drugs and the music that invites you to a lot of these areas, you know what I mean? Like just like so much of that, to like be bold enough in our faith at such a young age. It's like we stand out from the crowd, because it's not common, it's not common to be a light in the crowd of this world. And so to be able to see where you come from and in those and what you've experienced in your life, and to be able to say that one day you go back to New York and you're gonna now be that light in that crowd, just like that woman who was in that crowd before, and she spoke that favor into your life, like that light into your life, because God was obviously leading her into that, and to now fast forward into who you are now. It probably just all makes sense to you. Like it probably just all the connections of, wow, this is why back then this happened, and this is how, it was God calling you back to Him in so many different forms and ways that you're able to be who you are today. And I just think that it's so amazing, just being able to see so much favor in you, but there's so much, there's so much going on in your life, but you have a sense of peace still within you. And we know that much being part of just being a follower of Christ, and knowing that in His name He brings us that comfort and that peace, because we know that He does got us. He's holding us firm, and knowing that we will be protected at all costs. Knowing that no matter what falls apart around us, He's got the shield with us, and we will be fine, and we will go through it, and we will come out of it stronger than ever before. And a lot of times you see people who don't follow Christ completely fall apart, And so that's one of the major differences. But then you also see the favor that He has in your life now is not just words coming from a woman in a club, but it's now actual tangible. You feel it, you see it, you've experienced it, to all of what you have obeyed Him in, and the way that you have honored Him in, by taking the steps of listening to Him, by saying, come home, there's something here for you, you're gonna be with your people, you're gonna find a community, you're gonna get saved, you're gonna move forward in all of these things, no matter how difficult I can't imagine it was. Here you are today, sharing your testimony and sharing your story that is going to bring so much light to others. And God has truly favored you, and is going to continue doing so as you continue to go and step forward into Him. I think that is incredible and so special. And I can't imagine what you're going to do next, because the way that you're now speaking life into others and everywhere and everything you do, that's incredible.
I'm still new on my walk in Christ, and I hear that, when you first say yes to Jesus and you're like a baby Christian, you're like on fire for God, but you want to like spread his word all the time, but also you have to know when to say things and when to not. So I'm still I'm just going through so many things and learning so many things, but because I'm still stepping out of my comfort zone and still sharing these things and speaking life into people without holding back, it's showing that I am doing the right thing,
People that say that about baby Christians, because I know the saying. I think that that's like a well-renowned thing about how as new Christians come to faith, they have this like fire, and they're essentially they're not in a dry season with God, is what you would call it, and I will say, in all of my years of like being in faith, years where I was lukewarm, years where I was on fire, I never was someone to speak about him. Like, I was never someone who would, come up to and like be just open and comfortable and just like speak about, Jesus and, what he can do for your life. And that was always really hard for me, even as a newbie or anything like that. So I want you to find honor in that, because it's bold and it's beautiful and it's brave in a way of saying like you truly feel that confidence in Jesus the way that you should. And that's something that, as someone who's doing this for years, like I'm just now getting to that point in my life where I'm like, okay, time to let the world know who I am, because I never did. So the fact that you are willing to do that and be that way, like you walk in the confidence of God, is amazing. And you should be honored for it. And, know that that's not common. It's not common for people to walk like that.
Going off of what you said, sometimes we are ashamed of our faith, and because it is so different, and we are so different, and we stand out so much, that it can be intimidating, and it brings all of these emotions of nervousness, and you don't want to feel shamed by others who don't believe in you or judged or whatever. But when you do listen to God and you do listen to what He's encouraging you to do, which is you doing this podcast, this brings so much light to others who, even if there are only 25 people that watch this episode, or however many, that's 25 more people that are able to hear and get that reassurance that this is the way, or this is something that maybe they could try and lean into. And even if it's only for one person, I post on my Instagram for days about what God is doing in my life, but even if it's for one person, that's one more person that could potentially be saved than zero. So I would say keep listening to, I am as well, and I say, I speak to people, but it's for me as well, and we will keep listening to what God has to say through us, because it is rare. And there's the many famous people on social media or influencers that are paid to do this, but to think of just us who, we're, so they say, nobodies on social media, we still have this big presence in our community.
Yes.
But us staying consistent, and anyone else staying consistent in this path that we're on of spreading His word and leading others to be followers of Jesus is what we're meant to be doing. And there's so much power in this. I see so many people that are just, so many women especially, that are just so lost, and they're just like desperate for God's love, and they just don't know how.
Yeah.
And so to keep doing stuff like this, like, this is how they'll hear it, and they'll hear it over and over and over, and even if it takes them a year like me, they'll get there eventually.
Thank you for, once again, just being here, being bold, sharing your story, and just encouraging others through it. I want, others to truly like come forward in this, and just look for the link and share part of your story if you're a Christ follower, because really the more people we can get on here, just as Destiny said, like the more people we can encourage and we can give guidance to just a better way of living and a light in their darkness. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next episode.